Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get started here in just one more minute. I am so pleased on the turnout today because I've got to tell you, for years, customers have been asking me for advice on fax, and I thought it was time to really do a free training session to highlight the reasons why you should really think of going to virtual faxing solutions. So I think it's time here. It looks like we've got everybody joined in, so we're going to get started. So today is part of our ClearlyIP free education training sessions, and this is going to be the first of many to come. We've got several scheduled throughout December and into the new year. And again, today's highlight is on faxing. So what is virtual faxing and how can it benefit my business? So just to make sure you all know who I am, I'm Bree Fernie, and I recently joined the ClearlyIP team, and I'm in the marketing department, and just so happy to have you here with us today. And, customers often ask me, why would I go to virtual faxing when my physical fax is working just fine for me? And I don't understand really the benefits. And, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So that's what we're going to do is really explain the key features and benefits and give you all the reason to motivate you. So I'll be doing part of the presentation today alongside Tony Lewis, our CEO, and he's going to help with the live demo portion to actually show you the how. So we've broken today's presentation into three categories. So the what, the why, the how. What is faxing, and even why is it still being used, even though I'm sure everyone here today has a good idea of faxing, but the history is wild once we get into it. And secondly, why should you bother switching from a physical fax machine? It's tried, tested, and true and reliable. Will the benefits really motivate you? And third, how does it work? What is the difference between e-faxing and virtual faxing? And we'll cover all of this today in the live demo with Tony. So faxing, believe it or not, has been around since the 1840s. But here's a picture from 1913 with a live image being transmitted from the New York Herald office, I believe, to the Chicago Times Herald office about 1,000 miles away. It's incredible to see how the technology has evolved. So a little history for everybody here. Fax, 1843, it was invented. And that means that fax technology being used today is really not much different from 177 years ago. In 1924, the forerunner of the modern fax machine was invented. And back then, the first transcontinental fax was sent, and it was actually a photo of Calvin Coolidge sent from New York to London. And that same year, actually, the first color photo was faxed. In the 1930s, Finch facsimile system was used to transmit a radio newspaper to private homes via a commercial AM radio stations. And then in the 1940s, this history is wild to me, the 1940s, the radio fax receivers were sufficiently miniaturized to be fitted beneath the dashboard of Western Union's telegram delivery vehicles. So there's a huge history here. In the 60s, the United States Army transmitted the first photograph via satellite fax to Puerto Rico from the Deal test site using a courier satellite. So it goes on and on up to 64. Xerox Corporation introduced what many nowadays consider to be the first commercialized version of the modern fax. So fax has been with us for 177 years. I really didn't know that until we got deep into development of our fax solution at ClearlyIP, and I started learning the history and how it's really evolved. So the question I get asked a lot is, why do people still use fax? Why are businesses still using it? And furthermore, if everything's changed around fax, then why are they still doing it the old way? So My answer to that really is, there are different industries and different sectors. So, for example, in the legal and financial sectors, their documents require a signature, which they refer to as a wet signature or a dry signature. And a wet signature is the original signature, so called because it was once, albeit briefly, wet from the ink of the document. A dry signature is a copy of it or a faxed version of a wet signature. So do dry and wet signatures carry the same legal weight? Technically, yes, but the law can vary from province to province or state to state. So typically, lenders, medical, and law offices are impacted the most. And the other reason people are reluctant to change is that mindset of, if it works and I've been doing this for a long time and it's worth the hassle, then why change? So, but the truth is, sorry, in most cases, the answer is most definitely yes. And we've identified it's just a lack of knowledge around fax, virtual faxing, and how to make the transition and how easy it'll work for you in your business. So as important and vital fax communications are still important today, why would you want to limit your business, your operations, your people of having to stand at a physical fax machine every time they need to send a fax? I mean, that is just not productive in this day and age, and especially with everything going on right now. Most people are virtual, so there's even more motivation with all your virtual workers to be able to send faxes in a very fast and efficient, easy manner. So this is really where e-faxing and virtual faxing comes to market. It enables an ease of sending and receiving on so many various devices. Most people don't realize that they can use their cell phone to send a fax. They can use their tablet or a laptop, not just from a desktop or a physical fax machine. It can be any device. So we're going to go into that. So really, you can fax anywhere, anytime, and that's so important in how this world is changing how we all work. So ROI, this is usually the second question I'm asked. What's the return on investment? Because my printer, copier, fax machine is working just fine. Yes, I have to have someone come maintenance it, and yes, I have to constantly replace expensive toner cartridges, and yes, I have to pay for high speed, and yes, I have to pay for a single analog line. Oh, and let's not forget about the long distance charges. So, those costs constantly add up. Most business owners don't even realize how expensive it is to maintain a physical fax machine. So I've outlined here just an example of what the standard costs are. And really, it's usually a very conservative estimate, just looking at the long distance charges, dedicated phone lines, high speed, costs for the machine, toner cartridges, and then taking a look at, reducing your energy and time efficiency. And let's not forget that fax machines, any physical machine, is using energy when it's in standby. So, there's motivation there alone. And, it can be, I know in our old office, it could be a furnace in the summertime, which ended up costing us more to cool down the room. And that's motivation enough on those hot summer days. So the examples we're going to give on how to use faxing today and how the technology works, we are going to use our ClearlyIP Sendfax.to platform because we can actually do a live demo using it. Of course, I feel that our solution is the best on the market, and I've looked at many and tried many and compared. But the cool thing about our Sendfax.to, when we do the live demo, it's just going to demonstrate to you how really easy it is. So you're going to be able to see how, the benefits of e-faxing will motivate you to remove that old fax machine and get using it for both inbound and outbound. Some of the key benefits here are that you can define multiple email addresses to send inbound faxes. You can set up multiple DIDs, which are phone numbers. So let's say you wanted a different phone number per department that you're sending or receiving faxes to. And it's so simple. Just in the address, in the to field, you simply put the fax number at Sendfax.to. That's how easy it is. And another benefit is you can set up rebrandable email alerts, and even the Sendfax.to domain for resellers. And you can use e-fax portals, which rely 100% on email faxing. I mean, I could go on and on. Fax CDR showing all the sent and received faxes in the store, and an ability to set passwords that all fax PDFs are encrypted with at a per group level. So many of these things you can't do with the physical fax machine, and truly create improved privacy and security. So if you're thinking to yourself, this sounds complicated, well, it isn't. And that's where Tony's going to come in and join me today. And he's going to take it over from here. Tony, are you there with us?
Okay, I'm here.
Great.
Hello. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Try to get my screen shared.
We have several customers on this call today, super pumped, messaging me prior to our call about seeing how this all works.
Okay. Okay, everyone should be able to see my screen. You see that?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tony Lewis with ClearlyIP, and I'm going to just kind of walk through how Sendfax works from a setup configuration perspective, using our store portal for things, and just kind of walk through that a little bit here. So how does Sendfax work? So the first thing is...
Actually, Tony, I can't see your screen right now. Maybe I should click stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay, I've stopped sharing now. There we go.
Okay, you see the fax screen?
Yes, the
Okay,
inbound
awesome.
faxing, fax to email.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
So all of the management of your inbound outbound faxing configuration, like who gets what emails and who's allowed to send faxes, all happen from our portal, which we'll walk through here in a little bit. Inbound faxes can be delivered up to 2 email addresses. So we do limit it to 2 email addresses for spam reasons and rate limiting reasons with different fax or different email providers out there. But those email addresses could be distribution groups on your side where you then distribute to 5 other people, but you're allowed to provide on our side 2 different email addresses that we'll send inbound faxes to. And when you receive an inbound fax, you'll receive a nice little email like this little screenshot shows saying, "Hi, jsmith@email.com, you received a fax." You'll get details about that fax, who sent it, what the remote station ID of that fax machine that sent the fax was, what number they faxed to, when you received it, how many page counts it was, and if we got any errors. And then it'll attach the actual files for you to the email. So to do outbound faxing, we would go into our portal and enable what we call outbound email groups to send outbound faxing. And you can define up to 100 email addresses or domains that are allowed to send a fax. So I could put Brianna at ClearlyIP.com and Tony at ClearlyIP.com, or I could just do at ClearlyIP.com, then anyone from ClearlyIP.com could send out fax from that group. And once we have a group created, we then link that group to what phone number they're going to send outbound faxes as. And a single email address can be used with multiple phone numbers. So I can say my email address or domain is used with more than one phone number or DID that's allowed to send faxing out. And when you go to send a fax, you can easily specify the fax number to use as the sending address. So as part of the email string, if you want to use DID number 1 or phone number 1 to send out the fax, you can put that in the string, which will show you how to do it. If you only belong to a single email group, then you don't have to define it, and it will just automatically send it based on the group you belong to. So what do we do here? We create a new email message, and then we attach it with any PDF, PNG, IMG, or doc file. The body of your email by default will be the cover page. Enter the email address in the to field. So you would put in the phone number at Sendfax.to that you want to send to. And that can be with or without the 1, so you can do 10-digit or 11-digit. And then send your email. You'll receive an email confirmation once the fax successfully goes out, or if there's errors in transmitting or any problems with it, you'll receive an email alert about the errors. So here's an example on the left here of sending a new fax to this 902-555-6844. You'll notice that we have in the body of the email, we say this content will be sent to the business you're faxing. That's what your cover page would show. And then it would include this Sendfax.to brochure as the document that it's going to fax. And you can attach multiple documents. The other thing you can do is if you include a document called cover page something, we'll use that as your cover page. We'll ignore what's in the body of the email. So if you just attach any document, PDF or doc or anything with the word cover page as the document name, that will become your cover page when you send the fax out. So then you'll get a report back. It'll show you your email address and what number you sent the fax to, and then you'll get the results. So you'll see how many pages we received that you wanted to send out, how many we were able to send out, the remote station ID of who you sent the fax to. You'll see how long it took to send the fax, so 47 seconds, for example, and the baud rate the fax was transmitted at. And then it will show you all the documents that were included in the fax that came from your email. So cover page and then whatever other documents you might have had. In the event that your email address or your domain belongs to multiple email groups, and you don't tell us what phone number you want to send the fax out as, like your caller ID, we'll email you back saying, hey, your email address belongs to these phone numbers. You'll get this list and you pick which one, you just click on the phone number, and then it will send that fax out as that phone number for you. So we make it really easy. If you don't tell us which phone number to use and you belong to more than one phone number for outbound faxing, we'll just prompt you and ask you from your email. We'll email you back and ask you right away. There's also a full API for faxing. So for anyone who gets into the technical stuff, we have designed a full RESTful API that will let you connect using your token, and you can send and receive faxing right from our API, including getting, you can set a callback URL. So every time we get an inbound fax, you can give us a URL that we post to let you know that you have a new inbound fax. So for any of the tech savvy people you're looking to integrate to third-party systems, there is a full API. Lastly, we see a lot of people setting up the different multifunction printers or multifunction fax machines. Modern multifunction printers can handle email. So they actually have an email address on them, or you can program an email address on them. So you could actually add your multifunction printer's email address as one of the emails on your inbound fax, and it will send the inbound faxes to your fax machine. And most modern multifunction printers will let you send outbound faxes through email. So you'll be able to type in the phone number at Sendfax.to and hit send. It will send that email to scan the documents, and then it will send the email to us. So on our wiki, which is KB, knowledge base, so kb.clearlyip.com, there's a Sendfax section, and we have documentation on how to set up with most common multifunction printers, the Brothers, HPs, and Canons, I think we did. There's 3 or 4 of them listed there on how to set up email addresses so that you could do inbound fax to email or even outbound email to fax right from your multifunction printers. So what does it cost? So we sell Sendfax 2 different ways. There's no fee for users or groups. You create as many users and groups as you want. All we do is we charge you for the call pass of faxing you want. We sell the call pass 2 different ways. We sell a light call path for $9.99 a month MSRP. That includes 300 minutes or about 400 to 450 pages of faxing a month. We sell a high volume for $24.99. That's 2,000 minutes or about 3,000 to 3,500 pages a month of faxing. And you can buy multiples of those. So if you needed to do lots of faxing, you could buy multiple high volumes. You could also enable what we call bursting mode afterwards. So if you bought low or the light plan and you've exceeded your 300 minutes, you can go straight into a per minute fee where you pay per minute for faxing. And same with the high volume. And you can buy multiples. Like I said, you could buy 10 high volume faxes and those get pooled together. So you'd have 20,000 minutes of faxing across those 10 call paths. So that's the only fees. Of course, phone numbers have a monthly fee. Most of our numbers are fax capable. In our portal, we show with a little fax icon if they're fax capable. So any of the phone numbers you buy for your normal SIP service with us are also fax capable. Phone numbers are $1 a month MSRP. So how does this work? Give me 1 second here and we'll show you the portal.
And I just want to mention, I'm getting some questions here already. We're going to do some questions and answer at the tail end of the presentation here today.
Yep. Okay. Give me 1 second. My monitor is locking up on me on this side. Okay. So this is our trunking portal. So from here, we're going to go look at what we call a location, which is normally what we have for trunking service. So here we can see a list of different locations we have for trunking service already. I've got a location here called the webinar somewhere. Oh, it must be on the next page. There it is, webinar. So in this location, I happen to have voice service on it. You wouldn't have to have voice service. You could do faxing only. And I don't have faxing set up. So the first thing I need to do is pick a call path plan. So I'm going to pick either high or low. So we'll pick low for our test. And you can pick how many you want. Go through the checkout process. And we've added a low call path now to this location, which allows for the 200 minutes a month, or I'm sorry, 300 minutes a month of inbound, outbound faxing. And we can see we have one. And if we hit edit now, we can also change our metered services where we could burst beyond. So if we used up all 300 minutes, so we can say how many metered call paths, additional call paths do we want to metered? Maybe 3. That way we could have 3 additional concurrent faxes if we wanted, or just 1. And then we set a limit per month of how much metered we want to spend in faxing, that we don't want to exceed this. And by default, you're allowed up to $100. If you need more, you can contact us and we can increase that for you. So I might set this down to $50. So now I'm saying, allow me to burst 1 additional call path on top of the one I bought with the 3 that comes bundled with 300 minutes and set my limit at $50 a month. And now we're done. So just like all other call paths and services in our trunking, you can set notifications. So up here, we can see we've used 0 of our faxing, and we can set a notification. So we can say for faxing, when we've exceeded maybe every day, when if we've exceeded 75% of our balance, send me an email notice. Or I can say every hour do it. So you can get notified so that you're being notified if you're getting close to running out of those balances. So how do we actually set up faxing now? The next thing we have to do is go add email groups. So down here we have inbound email groups. So we're going to go create a new one. It's for our webinar location. We're going to add a new group. We're going to call this webinar test. Whoa, I could type today. And give it a test for webinar. If we were doing API faxing, this is where we define the URL to call back when an inbound fax is received. Then we get, what do we want to do with the attachment of the fax? So we're going to attach the fax as a PDF to the email, or we can provide a link to the PDF so you can download it so we don't attach it. So we can say, don't attach it, but give me a link to the PDF in the email. So you get those 2 options. Then you get the option of encrypting. This is important for things like medical fields where HIPAA comes in the US, the HIPAA regulations. We can encrypt the password and you give us the password you want. Now all those faxes will arrive in your email encrypted that you have to unlock with that password. And then this is where we can define the email addresses. I'm trying to remember, I've got there it is. I have a Gmail account set up just for these demos. So you can define up to 2 email addresses here. So I could say send it to those 2 email addresses. If I try to define a third, it's not going to let me. It's going to say, oh. It's going to say you're only allowed 2. So it's not going to let us add the third. So now these 2 email addresses will receive the inbound fax. I'll go ahead and remove this one. And from here, oh, can't believe I just closed that. That was really stupid of me. I told it to close it instead of saving it. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add it to the list. So we've added this webinar test. We could add additional inbound groups now if we wanted, just by clicking this button, or just say save this one. And then in a second, it'll update and show it's listed here. So that's for inbound. Now we're going to go do outbound. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pick the location it's for, add at least 1 new group. So we're going to call this webinar test. And now for outbound, we pick the station ID. That's like the name that's usually in a fax machine. You type in a station ID that you save in the fax machine, the physical fax machine, the first time you get your new fax machine. And that gets transmitted under law. That has to be transmitted in every fax. So a station ID is usually like a company name or abbreviation. You're only allowed 21 characters in it. So clearly demo will put for ours. And now we can define up to 100 email addresses that are allowed to send outbound faxes in this group. So we could say that clearly sales at Gmail, and we could actually just say at ClearlyIP.com, for example. Now anyone from that domain could send, but if we tried to be smart and went gmail.com, it's going to say, no, you're not allowed to do that. So there's some good smarts built into that. And then we can just do random, I'll just put something random in. So you can add up to 100 emails or domains. So we'll go ahead and remove these and leave just our Gmail one. And we're going to hit add to list. Now we could add more outbound groups if we wanted, or save the one we just created. And now you'll see they're both here, webinar test for inbound and webinar test for outbound that we created. Now that we have these groups created, we go in and we find a phone number. So I've got 2 numbers associated with my location. And right now they're both routing to this location, which means for voice services, for the SIP trunking. We're going to pick one of these. We'll pick this one. We're going to edit it by clicking the icon. And we're going to change the routing option. Right now it's routing to the webinar location for voice calls. We're going to hit the edit. We're going to say, instead of doing that, we want to send it to the fax server. And then you pick which inbound group you want it. And you pick which outbound groups allowed to send faxes as this phone number. So you're allowed 1 inbound group, but for outbound, you're allowed multiple outbound groups. So I could link multiple outbound groups are allowed to send out as this phone number. And save it. And we're set up now. So at this point, that Gmail user that I've set up can send and receive inbound faxes. So over here, I have a Gmail. And actually, I received an inbound fax a little bit ago when I was testing to make sure everything was happy. So this is an example of an email you get when you get an inbound fax. Now to send an outbound, it's pretty simple. We will send an outbound to, I have this number set up already as a good test number. So we're just going to compose a new email. We're going to pick a phone number we want to send it to. We're going to pick a subject if we wanted. And now we're going to put our body, which is going to be our cover page. Now, if we attached a document called cover page, it would use that as we discussed. And then we're going to attach just a sample PDF and hit send. It's not going to go and send that fax out for us. And then we'll get a confirmation once that fax is sent out. So that process is going to take a minute or so to transmit that fax. But that's how simple it is to send out an outbound fax. So any questions? I guess we'll open up for Q&A, Bree.
I've got lots of questions.
Okay.
They're popping up on my mobile device here from some of our customers that know me.
Okay, so I get, I'll hit the ones that we have here first. Is the email with fax PDF encrypted? Yes, that's an option. That's up to you if you want to encrypt the fax or not. So in the, so we got an, before we finish that Q&A, we got an email back saying a quick question before we can send your fax. The reason for that is I'm set up, remember I mentioned if your email address is set up with multiple outbound groups, we have to know which DID you want to use. So my email address is set up with multiple different outbound groups. So we click this link and it's going to give us a list of which DIDs we're set up with, and we just pick which one we want to send out as and hit, yep, send it.
DID is DID phone number.
Yep. Okay, yeah. So the question is the email with fax PDF encrypted? It can be, that's an option in the trunking portal. Remember, if we go to the faxing section in the inbound email group, we get to pick, do we want to encrypt the fax and then the password. Is this standalone SaaS or is it a hardware based? This is standalone. It is all email driven. So it's inbound, outbound faxing through email. Can you use a DID hosted with a different provider for outgoing faxes? A DID is just for billing. Benjamin's asking this. So yeah, Benjamin, because unlike phone calls where there's actually caller ID, faxing doesn't. It uses that station identifier for everything. And with outbound, you just set your station ID. So of course, because a DID hosted with another provider for outgoing faxing, you can't. The only reason we have DIDs is it's for billing purposes. We have to know how to bill the call, which account to bill it to. So absolutely you could. How do I get access to the website as a client, because I don't have access to it so far? If you're a fax client, you would have access to it. If you're not a fax client and you're some other type of client, reach out to sales, your sales rep, and they can work with you. Okay, Brie, you said you had some questions coming in?
Yes, one customer asked me, which you've already kind of touched on, Jen here said, how is it more secure than receiving a fax on a physical fax machine? Well, and I think the obvious is that someone can't, any employee or colleague of yours can't go grab that piece of physical paper and read it. But Tony, you had mentioned the encryption with the password.
Yep. So, I mean, there's multiple ways to say it's more secure. You know, the first thing is, as Bree mentioned, it's not just some fax laying on a fax machine, which is so insecure, which is crazy that that's HIPAA compliant, because you know, you walk in any doctor's office, they have a stack of inbound faxes sitting in a fax machine that anyone could walk by and grab. So this goes to your email address, and then of course you can encrypt the PDF so that they're delivered to you encrypted too.
Another question I've got here is, I'm just reading this off my personal mobile device here. Do recipients that receive a fax on a physical fax machine sent from email to fax, is there any way they can tell, i.e. banking instructions to a bank? Which actually resonates with me, Tony, because
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
I think what they're asking, I think what he's asking is there any way on the receiver's end to know that this fax was sent by email to fax?
No, because the email portion sends it to our servers. And then once our servers gets it, they use a bunch of fax processing logic to send out the fax as a traditional fax. And that's what that station ID is. So the receiving side, all they know about is the station ID, whatever station ID you provided. And that station ID can be a phone number or a physical name, like, ClearlyIP. It's whatever you want. It just, there has to be a station ID on every fax legally in the US.
Okay, so, and Jeff continues, so you can trick the banks. So I actually,
Wow.
this resonates with me because I'm, ClearlyIP is a global company. We all work remotely at times. And even right now, I'm out of Canada and my bank does not receive banking instructions via email, only physical faxes. So this solution has saved my bacon to send banking instructions because I don't have a fax machine at my home, right?
They will have no clue how you sent that fax.
Okay.
We have another question here, Bree. Can I review all the faxes I sent to the website? You can't review the actual faxes for security reasons. We don't show the faxes in the portal, but we show all the call history because it's just another call. So if we go look at what's called CDRs, call detail records for your location, and we say, I want to look at a specific location, and most people only have one location, but we have lots on this test system. We can actually search and we can see, it's not processed yet, 5-minute delay or so, but all your, just gotta extend the date, I bet. Oh, so it's not there yet, but all your inbound, outbound faxes will show in your CDRs, and the call path that you see right here, this column, will show fax instead of voice.
So that goes in line with the question I have from Lee. He said, can you set up folders to your network or wherever and organize all your fax confirmations? He's with a car dealership and he asked, can you set up a folder for service, for sales, and then,
So for that, I'm not quite sure I get 100%, but let me try to answer it. Yes and no, I would say. So that would be just different email addresses and that come into your email inbox, and from there you could decide, or you could use our APIs, which could mount, with our APIs, and they do a web callback. It would take a developer to do something on your end, but those faxes could be mounted to some network file share on your local system if you wanted, because we do an API callback for every fax. We have another question here of, can we enter any outgoing caller ID to use for outgoing faxes? So again, faxes doesn't use caller ID like a voice does. Everything in faxing is that station ID. So you can put whatever you want in that station ID. Don't get hung up on the caller ID, because caller ID is not used anywhere like a traditional caller ID number is. It's all done through station ID in the fax world.
I have a question. Here from Jill. She's asking, can you set up inbound groups for departments? They have a law firm. She said a department for medical records, a department for court documents, correspondence, and then those faxes go directly to those departments.
As long as each individual group would have its own phone number. So let's take an example. Let's say you bought one call path from us for faxing for high volume for $24. From there, you could have 5 different phone numbers that cost you $1 a month for each phone number, and each phone number belongs to a different department. And then each of those phone numbers, if you remember, we went in and we said this phone number. So if we go look here on the screen share again, we manage what inbound group each number goes to at a phone number level. So when we go look at the webinar location, we specifically said this phone number here, and we linked it to the fax server. And we said, when we receive an inbound fax, send it to this group of people, which is up to two people. So you would have 3 or 4 phone numbers, and each phone number would go to a different email group. Does that make sense, Bree?
Absolutely.
Okay. We got a question from Lauren here. So we have multiple customers who use an inbound fax to email only, each with their own inbound TFN, so toll-free number. Would we be required to purchase multiple light plans for each customer, or do they need a separate plan? So that's up to you. You could create. It's all how you're going to sell the service or use the service. So you could create a single location called, your fax catch-all, and put however many call paths you wanted in that catch-all location. and then add all your email groups and DIDs to that location. And it would just be one location that you manage all for all your customers as a reseller, all their different email groups. Or you can create separate locations for each customer, and they have their own dedicated call paths for that customer only. It's totally up to you how you want to do that.
That goes in line with the question I just received. This customer wants to know, can they get more fax numbers through ClearlyIP for this platform and still use their main fax that they've been using for 50 years?
Say that one more time, Bree.
Basically, what I think they're saying or asking is, can they order new DIDs, new DIDs? You know, their company has one fax number right now, but this is having them think, hey, I could have one for this department, one for that department.
Yes.
Can they get that with us?
Yeah, you can real-time buy phone numbers on demand. So from within our store here, we can come into phone numbers and we can buy numbers in 10,000 rate centers real time. So I can come in here and whether US or Canada, pick a state or province, pick a rate center. And I can buy numbers real time and instantly have them. And we can see all the ones that support fax because they have this little T38 icon, we call it here. So any of those numbers that have that little icon there support faxing.
He's asking me, will someone help us set this up?
Of
and
course.
Can we choose our own phone number? So
Yep.
Yeah, that answers that question. And this can even support businesses to get fax numbers in various locations if they want that as well.
Yep, for sure.
And then the last question I have here, can I have a demo?
Yeah, so you can contact sales. They can work with you on that.
Okay. Trial, question mark. Could they try it out for a day or two?
Yep.
Perfect.
We got one more question back from Benjamin again on this caller ID stuff. Can we enter station ID X for outgoing email group Y and station ID? Yeah. So the outgoing station ID is done at the outbound group level. So when you go and create an outbound group, at the group, you pick which station ID that whole group uses.
There's a bit of confusion here that I'm getting a couple questions on station ID. Do you use your company name typically?
Generally, that's what most people do.
Okay.
It's on every fax machine. You just didn't realize it. When you set up your fax machine and you bought it from the store and you plugged it in the first time, it actually had you set that up.
I have one more question here from George. George says, I have a single phone line at a $75 a month and long distance of $400 to $500 a month. Will this eliminate that?
Well, we'd have to look at what his volume is and everything else.
He said he's faxing within Canada.
I know, but it's all
America.
volume, right? Because what we just described is you get so many minutes, and then anything over that you pay per minute. So we'd have to understand the volume.
So I'd suggest he reaches up to sales and they take a look at his last bill. Perfect. That's it on my end. Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, here's another one. If I already have a fax number I've been using for 50 years, do I port it to Clearly? Do I need to port my number to ClearlyIP?
If you want to receive inbound faxing on that number with us to your email, yes, you would have to port. We'd have to port the number.
Okay.
We have one other one here. Is the fax service completely separate from our telecom equipment? Yes, so it can be. That's up to you. But yes, it's independent of your telecom equipment. You would port your numbers to us, what's called, or transferring, which is what's called number porting. You'd port your fax number to us, and then your faxing would be done through our portal and stuff. I get a question of, can the phone line and fax line share the same DID or share the same phone number? No, because when you set up routing for inbound, you're now routing it only to fax. So when we went and took that phone number, we said it's no longer a voice number, it became a fax only. So you can't share fax and voice on that number.
Right.
Okay. So, any other questions, hit up sales. They'll be happy to talk with you on it. It's a reliable, robust system. We've had it out for 6+ months now, and seen a lot of demand on it, and wasn't expecting this much demand on faxing.
Faxing's important, especially, you know, with everything going on in the world. Communications are being done more and more remotely, and people have in their minds that fax is the trusted and tried, tested communication.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you so much. We went a little over time, but stay tuned for our next training session, which is really geared towards our partners on Carey's Law and the Ray-Baum Act. That I understand that invitation for that training session will be going out tomorrow, and we will be recording this session and putting it on our ClearlyIP YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe. We've got some really fun stuff going online right now, and we'd love to have you check it out. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.